Hello friends, welcome back to our YouTube channel. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. I'll share our videos commanded by our experts, so let's begin.
If you like, please like, share and subscribe. So let's begin our today's topic. Let's begin.
Sustained technological dominance in emerging markets requires resolving deeply entrenched friction points that a standard-based model cannot address alone. This line chart tracks user volume for OpenAI's upgraded image generation tool, ChatGPT Images 2.0. In less than 30 days after its launch, users in India generated over 1 billion images. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman officially confirmed the milestone shortly after the April launch. Attributing this specific scale strictly to India's population size is an analytical failure. Older, equally accessible AI models never achieved this level of velocity. Previous text-to-image systems functioned mostly as aesthetic novelties. The assets driving this specific surge are highly functional, commercial-grade graphics. This sudden adoption validates three distinct architectural shifts. First, typographic localization, frictionless iterative user experience, and functional utility outputs. ChatGPT Images 2.0 evolved from a digital curiosity into a localized enterprise design suite. India presents a remarkably dense visual and linguistic landscape. Navigating it requires hyper-local context. Historically, Western generative AI models failed here. They could process English prompts, but when asked to render regional text, they output garbled, nonsensical glyphs. Bilingual visual communication is a strict requirement for Indian commercial and public design, seamlessly blending regional scripts with English. Images 2.0 bypasses the traditional English translation bottleneck entirely. It natively understands conversational Hinglish and renders precise regional typography. This wireframe visualization demonstrates a technical breakthrough called pixel space typography. The model treats regional scripts as structurally accurate visual geometry, constructing each character point by point. This architecture delivers text-accurate, culturally resonant outputs on the first try from a hybrid language prompt. The difference is stark. Older systems produce illegible shapes, while the new model generates a crisp, perfect Hindi-English festival greeting card from a single prompt. This level of typographic accuracy established immediate commercial viability for millions of regional digital creators and local marketers. This text-to-image capability is especially critical for a heavily mobile-first user base, who generally lack access to desktop typography tools. By solving the typographic localization problem, OpenAI took a Western tech curiosity and turned it into an essential local business utility. The second barrier to professional adoption has always been the user experience. Historically, requesting a minor adjustment to an AI image triggered a completely new, unpredictable generation. Professional workflows rely on isolated, localized adjustments. The old cycle of endlessly adjusting prompts and re-rolling is completely useless for serious design. The architectural solution that finally solved this issue and triggered massive adoption across the region is native in-app editing via targeted masking. First, the user generates an initial base asset, like this cinematic, culturally specific movie poster. Second, they isolate a specific region, perhaps a character's clothing, directly within the standard chat interface. Third, they apply a secondary refinement prompt that targets only that isolated area, leaving the rest of the composition completely untouched. This animated layer breakdown shows context-aware localized diffusion. The base image locks while the masked region recalculates pixels. The system evaluates surrounding unmasked pixels to ensure lighting, shadows, and textures of the new edit match perfectly with the original environment. Previously, achieving this required exporting the image to standalone graphics software like Photoshop for manual correction. By eliminating the transition between the generation tool and editing software, Images 2.0 bridges the gap between raw ideation and a final, client-ready draft. Prompt data tracked by LiveMint reveals a significant behavioral shift among Indian users. Standard pop culture visual trends, like stylized anime edits and Studio Ghibli-inspired landscapes, certainly drove the initial viral engagement loop, but the sustained billion-image volume is actually driven by a completely different sector: functional, business-to-business graphic utility. The highest volume professional use cases involve generating regional startup advertisements and highly customized communication assets. Right now, the single most complex utility case dominating the platform is the generation of highly artistic, seamlessly interactive QR codes. This is an incredibly difficult technical task. It requires balancing smooth aesthetic integration with strict machine-readable contrast rules. To pull this off, advanced users are deploying paid thinking models to execute dual objective prompts. This animation overlays a rigid QR grid on an organic shape. The reasoning model calculates error correction while generating creative pixel structures. The AI intentionally warps the aesthetic design around required data anchors, mathematically preserving the zones needed for scannability. When users commit reasoning model tokens to the generation of functional QR codes, it demonstrates a segment of the market that has transitioned from seeking visual novelty to demanding reliable, logic-driven tools. At the macro scale, these complex multi-step workflows are now being executed millions of times per hour across India. Looking back at the initial adoption curve, we can now read it as a roadmap of product evolution. The first pillar is linguistic precision. It must be native, not translated, to effectively capture emerging markets. The second pillar is iterative UX. It has to eliminate the need for third-party software, turning the chat interface into the entire design suite. The third pillar is functional output, proving that long-term retention relies on logic-driven commercial utility, not aesthetic generation. Population size alone only yields this kind of scale if the product specifically aligns with the market's infrastructural and cultural constraints. By combining these three pillars, Images 2.0 effectively democratized a professional-grade graphic design pipeline for an entire subcontinent. The future of generative AI dominance belongs exclusively to platforms that marry cultural alignment with frictionless, reasoning-based utility. In less than a month after its launch, Indian users generated 1 billion unique images using a single AI tool. OpenAI's CEO Sam Altman officially confirmed the milestone, establishing India as the largest global market for their upgraded image generation model. This rapid adoption comes down to the model's new architecture. It now accurately processes regional languages, like conversational Hinglish, understands hyper-specific local cultural nuances, and allows users to edit visuals natively without leaving the chat. We are going to build 3 assets to test these capabilities. First, a multilingual greeting card. Next, a viral cinematic poster. Finally, we will use a paid thinking model account to engineer an artistic, scannable QR code. By mastering these 3 specific workflows, you will gain the practical tools needed to produce localized digital assets entirely on your own. Digital greeting cards and customized WhatsApp stickers dominate regional communication networks, creating a massive demand for localized graphics. To generate our own, we start with a specific prompt formula. Instruct the model to create a high-resolution, festive Diwali scene centered on a single glowing diya. Text generation is where older models failed. To ensure accuracy, encapsulate the exact Hinglish phrase you want, like Diwali ki Hardik Shubhkamnaएं, inside quotation marks within your prompt. This side-by-side comparison shows how the model locks on to specific characters. The typography on the generated card on the right perfectly matches the quoted prompt on the left, capturing the exact Hinglish spelling. With reliable multilingual text rendering built directly into the engine, you no longer have to export a blank graphic into a secondary editing program just to add functional typography. Sometimes the generated image is highly accurate, but requires a specific localized tweak. Instead of rolling the dice on a completely new image, select the edit brush, highlight the background, and type a short subprompt to replace it with a starry night sky. The core image stays intact, while only the background updates. This same engine handles complex stylistic crossovers. Digital creators are currently testing the limits by mixing detailed Indian environments with Japanese anime aesthetics. We provide the model with a baseline subject, a bustling street food vendor at night, and instruct it to render the scene entirely in the cinematic style of a Studio Ghibli movie poster. The output captures the local lighting, but translates the textures into an anime style. The model applies the same flexibility to other trending formats, converting base images into stylized avatars or hyper-realistic professional headshots. Combining these precise cultural details with built-in editing creates a high-speed pipeline for developing viral social media formats. Now we move to interactive utility by building an artistic, scannable QR code. Because this requires complex spatial logic to hide data inside art, you must switch your account to the paid thinking model tier. Prompt the model to take a specific URL and integrate its corresponding QR data pattern directly into a traditional Indian mandala art design. The primary failure point here is over-stylization. You must explicitly instruct the model in your prompt that the contrasting data blocks need to remain perfectly scannable. This animation shows the spatial requirement. The AI must disguise the rigid, square data blocks as flowing artistic elements, while maintaining the underlying mathematical grid. Even disguised as a traditional motif, those specific high-contrast data points trigger the same response when read by a lens. Before deploying this asset to a campaign, you have to physically live test the output with a smartphone to ensure the contrast levels hold up under real-world lighting conditions. Embedding scannable utility into highly stylized visuals closes the gap between pure digital art and functional marketing. In one session, we've executed 3 distinct workflows without leaving the main chat window. We generated a culturally accurate greeting card with correct English text, a stylized cinematic poster, and a functional artistic QR code. You can take this further. Use the native editor to swap out the background of your new QR code, or adjust the prompt to transform it into a specialized startup advertisement. The integration of localized text rendering and in-app editing provides a complete workflow for digital creators. Drop your most successful prompts in the comments so we can test them out.